I think that the future Chinese business environment is maturing, and we're beginning to see businesses moving into a more mature business cycle. So where we've been very much used to businesses growing at high double digits in the teens to low 20s, we're now looking at high single digits. One of the other aspects as going forward is the business size and scale is becoming much larger and complexer. And many multinationals are beginning to be able to generate somewhere in the region of 18 to 25% of their global sales from Asia, and a large portion of that from China. So the impact on the leadership is that the leaders in China and Asia are increasingly having to become from a pool of much more capable and talented managers who are used to working in more mature markets with slowing growth, rather than those who had been working at the forefront of market entry. So we're looking at a second phase now where the markets are maturing, there's more consolidation, there's increasing mergers and acquisitions, and increasingly the lead players who entered the market 15 or 20 years ago have got very sizable businesses. As we move into a more mature business cycle in China, I think the skills, increasingly the skills the leaders are going to require here are skills which have been developed with the highest ethics. And secondly, who has the ability to really communicate and engage with the employees, and who can be resilient. So for me, these are the three critical points: to be able to engage and communicate with the employees, and to be able to work closely with them, to have the highest ethic values and to demonstrate that and lead that through the organization, but also to have the resilience to still work through many of the difficulties that exist as this market changes. So in terms of developing strategies for the talent pool for the changing needs in China, there's definitely an increasing pressure on companies to be able to take their senior Chinese executives out of China and give them time to work in other markets, be it Europe or the US, where they can develop critical skill sets in more mature markets, where they can get experiences in different issues, where they can become empathetic to foreign companies' operations in China through their experiences that they gain when they work in a foreign country in a different language. And so we feel that by not always sending the Western expatriates to China, but expatriating your Chinese executives out and giving them that kind of exposure, in the long term it'll develop them. Of course, it's a risk, and there won't be a full retention from the investment. And so as you look at the return of investment, there is that risk, but it's a risk that companies will have to take. And there's also a lot of pressure on companies to keep their most talented Chinese managers in market, working hard, running the China business. And it's taking that risk of taking a key executive out and giving them a couple of years in another market, and the cost to the company of that investment. But the returns will come after that person gains those experience overseas and comes back imbued with the views and the experiences of a couple of years in overseas markets, as is the same for everybody who comes from Western multinationals who's worked in Europe and America and have benefited from that. In China, the technology tools are far more advanced than in many of the Western markets, and the interaction and use of technology, particularly mobile technology, is very widespread. And therefore, I would see the technology most benefiting companies from the use of things like employee relations and employee communications. Having everybody in the company on the same WeChat, so that they all get the same blast at the same time from the CEO, who can respond to an issue that happens with the company, whether that company has a food tainting issue, or they have an issue with one of their restaurants, or they have a oil spillage. Whatever the adverse publicity or other issues, the CEO can react immediately, and the staff can be informed. So these kind of employee relations and communication tools definitely need to be used in China and monitored. And we certainly use them in our particular roles in being able to sweep the internet and look for information on releases and background information on people that's been posted on websites. One of the probably downsides of the regulatory issue in China is that people are allowed to post what would be considered relatively libelous information, and therefore rumors can spread very quickly and need to be controlled. So I would definitely see technology more as an employee relations and communications tool, and something that needs to be monitored very closely and the company needs to take action on. In terms of recruitment, I would say that the tools exist, and of course the online social media databases are far bigger than any single company's database, but they are only as good as the data that went in. And so whilst a tool, it takes quite a lot of management and time to use them, and they are best used more at the university entrant and worker entrant level rather than the mid to senior level.